Hello board game brothers and sisters, I'm Adam Singer and welcome to another episode where I'll be letting you know of all the board games launching on Kickstarter and Gamefound over the next week. If you're new here, we do this every single week going over all the upcoming campaigns, so if you want to stay up to date, this is definitely the place to be. But before we get started, I do like to go over some news and announcements that I just found out about. We do finally have a launch date for the game Puerto Rico, which is going to be launching on September 12th. And this is going to be a re-implementation of the game Puerto Rico, which is a really great game. It is pretty cutthroat, so if you are adverse to that, you may want to avoid this one. But I do recommend checking it out because I personally enjoy this game quite a bit, and it's definitely one that I plan to be adding to my collection as long as there's no big red flags with this campaign. Currently, the campaign is just showing a bunch of images from Castles of Burgundy, so you pretty much ignore all that except for they're showing that to tell you that they're going to be giving this game that same treatment, which means that there's going to be a lot of deluxeified components, really nice artwork, and of course probably some miniatures, and I'm not sure exactly how they're going to be incorporating that into this game, but hopefully they do still take the same approach like they did with Castles of Burgundy where the miniatures were optional, because a lot of times Awakened Realms just wants to jam miniatures into places where they don't necessarily belong. That being said, when they do get it right, their miniatures are really nice, and it looks like they're at least going to be miniaturizing the boats in this game, which I'm a fan of. But for the rest, we'll just have to check back in the next month to see how exactly this all pans out. And if you do want to get more info on how this game actually plays and what the campaign is going to be offering that's new, feel free to subscribe because I will dive into this one in much more detail during the week of its launch. And for everyone out there who doesn't have quite enough root yet, they are going to be launching a new expansion in October, and this one's going to be adding toads and bats. I don't know if that's exactly how they're going to name these new critters, but that's at least what they have on the image on their campaign page currently. I'll let you know when we do actually have an exact launch date for this one, and I'll also let you know what the new expansions are going to be adding into the game once I have more info, so once again, feel free to subscribe down below. Other than those two updates, the only other thing I want to mention is that I will be attending GenCon. I just confirmed it, and because of that, I'm actually filming this video way sooner than usual. It's actually Tuesday right now, and I normally film this on the Friday because games can be announced all the way up to the day of their launch, so there might actually be a few games that I missed, but hopefully I've covered most of them here. I'm also going to try and film a second video tonight going over either my top 10 or 20 games that I want to preview at GenCon, so if you are interested to know which games that I want to check out the most, I will leave a link to that in the pinned comment in the comment section. As always, I do want to give a quick mention to Alex over at Boardgame Co. because him and I do work together keeping track of all these upcoming campaigns so that I can give you these videos every single week. But then Alex puts up a video at the start of each month letting you know of the heavy hitters for that month. Since August has just started, you can expect that video up really soon. And if you do want to know about even more games, you can go ahead and check out Zilla Blitz because Alex and I don't really focus on the same area as Michael does over at Zilla Blitz. He focuses primarily on historical war games. So if that is a genre that you're interested in, he has a lot more sources that he uses and also covers some other crowdfunding platforms. And that's everything I got for an intro, and I got a lot to do tonight, so let's jump into it. And the first campaign we have launches on August 5th, and this one's called Pizza Chef: The Next Generation. And this one is a competitive game where players are pizza chefs trying to earn the most victory points by making and delivering pizzas. The way that the game works is that there's two ways that you can earn victory points in this game, either by completing orders or by completing objectives. You're going to be starting with some of each of these cards, and there are ways that you can earn more of them throughout the game, but you do want to be very particular with the ones that you actually decide to keep because any that you don't complete are going to be worth negative victory points at the end of the game. The main board is going to have all your different ingredients in the center of the board, and there's going to be different houses identified with different numbers scattered all around the perimeter of the board, each with a limited amount of pizzas that can actually be delivered there. Players are going to be taking turns performing just 2 actions on their turn, and the different options they have available to them are to spend an action to either draw an additional delivery or mission card, or also you could choose to draw one of your chef ability cards. There's a whole bunch of these in the game that all offer you a different effect, and you're only allowed to hold one at a time, but generally these are going to give you different ways to either help yourself or harm your opponents. But of course you can't make a pizza without the ingredients, so there is an action to collect those from the center of the board. And the way that this works is that you're going to be choosing any row or column, and then you're going to be collecting all the tiles that either match the same color or that match the same ingredient type, and then you'll be able to take all of those into your supply. This is another thing you want to be very particular with because any ingredients that you have left over at the end of the game are also worth negative victory points. You will also come across these mystery bags that have both colors on them, but these are always optional to pick up. And these can be nice because they can often give you multiple ingredients or maybe even a premium ingredient that gives you additional victory points if you happen to use it. but they can also have a expired ingredient, and if you have any of those ingredients already in your supply, you're going to have to discard all of those, making those no longer available to you, which could be a good thing if you're nearing the end of the game and you're not able to use them anyway. You can also use an action to just refresh the market if there's nothing there that you want. And the final thing that you can do with an action point is to just discard one of your ingredients or one of your delivery or mission cards. And this can be helpful if you think it's going to be costing you negative victory points at the end of the game and you don't have anything better to spend your action on. But when you do have the ingredients to complete one of your order cards, you can just go ahead and do that. And the way that this works is that each of these order cards are going to have a house icon on the top left corner of them, indicating which house that pizza needs to be delivered to. As I mentioned before, each of these houses only have a limited number of pizzas that they're willing to accept, but these numbers can come in handy in a few different ways, especially with the different objective cards that might require you to deliver a certain amount of pizzas to a certain numbered house. Whenever you're able to do that, you're going to be putting your colored pizza token on the topmost space beside that house, with each of those spaces giving you a certain amount of victory points, so if you are able to get there first, you will get the most victory points for that location. Once a player delivers their 8th and final pizza, that's going to be triggering the final round for the game. You're going to complete that round and then add up your victory points from your deliveries and any of your objectives, and the player with the most victory points wins the game. And if you are interested to check this one out, and also launching on the 5th, we have Dr. Leichenberg's Apothecary of Remedies, and this is a game that can be played both competitively and cooperatively. But in this game, players are essentially trying to cure their patients of ailments before their patient dies. A patient's going to start with 3 different ailment cards, and the icons on the left represent the different types of tokens that you need to acquire in order to cure that ailment. And on the right, there's going to be a bunch of side effects that are going to be occurring there at different points in the game depending on the different effects and the cards that the players play. Each ailment will also have its own special effect that gets activated at the end of each round, and these can have all sorts of different effects on the game, like adding or removing different cure or side effect tokens, or even forcing you to cure that ailment first before you're able to work on any of the others. Players all lose the game if the patient dies, and that can happen in one of 3 ways. Either any of the ailments get 6 side effects tokens put onto it, or you can also lose the game if all of your side effect tokens run out. And the way that that can happen is that anytime that an ailment gets 4 side effects on it, that's going to force you to draw another ailment into play. And if you get too many of those, and those are drawing too many side effect tokens, you might end up running out of those tokens, and your patient is going to run out of time. The final way that you can lose your patient is if their health goes all the way down to 0. Your patient will start with a health of 100, but at the end of each round, you're going to be subtracting the values from each of the ailment cards, and then also subtracting the values of the various side effect tokens that are currently in play. Luckily, you are all doctors after all, and you do have ways to fight off all of these different ailments and cure them in order to get them and their side effect tokens off the board. And players are going to be drawing up to 5 treatment cards each and every round, and they're going to be taking turns playing those in order to unlock your various cures. There's going to be 3 different boards where you can assign your cards, and in order to assign a card to a board, it needs to match the icons located on the left-hand side of the board. These are all randomized tokens, so you're going to get a bit of variety from game to game, and if you're able to fully fill up any of these tracks of cards, then that's going to be unlocking the cure token at the bottom. You'll then be able to assign that to any of the ailments in order to cure that ailment. That is, if you've gotten every cure token that that ailment requires. Another kind of nice thing about playing these cards into the different tracks is that each card does have a special ability associated with it, and it always gets activated when you play that card. But depending on your situation, that ability can sometimes be good and sometimes not, so you're going to have to time your cards appropriately and also weigh the pros and cons of each of the cards that you play. If the players are able to use their cards in order to cure all their patients' ailments before one of those lost conditions are hit, then they win the game. Otherwise, you might want to be looking for other work. If you're interested in this one, I'll have a link to it in the description down below. Launch on August 6th, we have the 20th anniversary edition of Dungeon Twister, and this is a game that was released 20 years ago, but this one's going to be giving you a revised and improved edition of this game. All the artwork and components are improved in this game, and what's really nice about this game is that it uses magnets in order to tie gear to your various units. This is a head-to-head game where players are going to be relying more on their strategy rather than their luck, as you play either 1v1 or 2v2, racing to be the first team to gain 5 points. There's a few different ways that you can gain victory points in this game, but the main ways are by either defeating your opponent's units or by getting your units to their side of the board. As you move your units, you can also pick up different types of gear that are going to be magnetically attached to the bottom of your miniature, and you can see how it works in this video here, but I can also show you in person because they were nice enough to send me a copy of the game. The way the game's set up is that you're going to have a bunch of boards in the center, and then each team is going to be starting on either side of those boards. I'm only showing 4 here, but you're actually going to be playing with 8, having a 2x4 layout. I just have the 4 out here because I have limited space on my table, and this is enough to at least give you an idea how the game plays. Like I said, this is a game that has very little luck, and a big part of that is that each team is going to have access to the same types of units and the same type of gear that they're going to be putting out on various locations out on the board. Each team's going to have 8 different units, and the cards here are only used to keep track of the unit's health and movement, as well as any special abilities. The wizard can move really quickly and also hover over obstacles. The wall walker can walk through walls. The goblin is worth 2 victory points if you're able to get them to the other side of the board. The warrior can actually break through closed doors. The cleric can heal other units. The mechanorc can rotate boards more easily, which I'll come back to in a second here. The troll has a regeneration effect. And then the thief is able to move freely over traps. But each player is going to have a bunch of these different tokens that have each of the units and different types of gear offered in the game. And these are also going to have question marks on the back of them because at the start of the game, players are going to be setting up the board by taking turns putting these out on the various locations. You're always going to be putting 4 of your units in the starting position on your side, but then your remaining tokens you can put out on any of the tiles, keeping in mind that there is a limit to how many tokens can go on a single tile. So let's say that the blue team put 4 of their units out in their starting positions, and then the red team did the same. Now they would just take turns putting different tokens on the different spaces that they want those tokens to be. But you do want to try and remember what you're putting where because you're not going to be allowed to look at these again after you've put them out. And I just want to reiterate here that if I did use all the tiles, I would have put all the tokens out, so every piece of gear and every unit does get used in every game. But once all of that's done, players can go ahead and reveal the different units that they placed at their starting positions, and then you're just going to be taking the associated miniature and then replacing the token with that miniature. I'll go ahead and do that now. Now that the game's set up, players are just going to be taking turns performing their actions. You're going to be choosing a starting player, and then players each have these action cards that they're going to be simultaneously choosing and revealing in order to determine how many actions they have available for this particular round. Let's say that the red player revealed a 2 and the blue player revealed a 4. Those cards are going to be used this round, and then they're going to be discarded until you've used all of your action cards, and it's only at that point that you're able to pick all of your action cards back up and to be able to use them in a future round. Each action point can allow you to do one of 6 different things. You can either reveal a room, rotate a room, move one of your characters the number of movement points that they have, initiate combat with a opponent player adjacent to you, or use a character's special ability, or use an object that you might have equipped. Since the blue player has 4 action points, they're going to be using their first action point to flip a room, and you're able to do this anytime that one of your units is in a space adjacent to that room. So I have 2 units adjacent to this room, so I'll just go ahead and flip this. And you may notice that this tile did have 2 tokens on it, and there are 2 different types of gear. There's armor and a rope. And what's really cool about this is that anytime a room is flipped, all the blue tokens are going to be placed on one of the spaces by the red player, and then all the red tokens are going to be placed on any of the spaces by the blue player. Since the red player does not want the blue player to get these pieces of gear easily, they're going to be putting them in faraway spaces that aren't so easy to get to. For any of these gates, you're going to be putting a gate token on top of it to indicate that that location is currently blocked. But as I mentioned, the warrior is able to break through those with an action point, but unfortunately for me, I don't have my warrior in play yet. There's also these locations with traps on them that only some of your units will have abilities to either move through or over on their own, but for your units that don't have any ability like that, you do have a few of these jump cards that are one-time use, but you can use them to get over those traps a little bit easier. Otherwise, you're going to have to find another way to get around it, or possibly just eat the damage. And a really useful way to do that is to rotate the room in order to make new paths accessible to you. And that's what this icon is here, and every tile does have an icon that allows you to rotate the room, and it's going to indicate in which direction that room will rotate when you use that. But in order to use it, you do have to move one of your units on top of it, and then spend an action point for each rotation that you want to make. But I do still have 3 action points I can spend, and I'm going to use my next action point to move my Mechanorc, who has a movement of 3, and also has an ability that allows me to rotate the room that he's in for 1 action point. So I'm going to use an action point to move my Mechanorc his 3 movement points all the way over here. And I'm going to use my next action point to rotate this room any direction that I want, and I want to rotate it like this. And then I'll use my last action point to move my wizard onto this piece of gear, which is the rope, which isn't super useful for the wizard because the wizard can already hover over traps and the rope allows you to move through traps without harm. But I can drop it at any time or trade it with an adjacent unit, so I think it is worth picking up. Now the red player is going to use their 2 action points, and then they're going to flip this tile over here. And then, just like before, since these are red tokens, it's going to be up to the blue player to decide where they go, and they're going to put them wherever they think is the most difficult for the red player to get to them. But one of these tokens is actually one of the red player's units, so whenever this comes up, you're actually going to be swapping it out for the associated miniature. But the same thing happens here. The blue player gets to decide where they go, so the blue player might put this token somewhere over here, and then put this unit somewhere over here. And that's it for the first round. This game can play very quickly, but both of these cards are then going to be discarded. And then the next round is going to start with each player simultaneously choosing an action point card to reveal. Then it's going to be the red player who gets to go first. I've just fast forwarded the game here to show you how combat works, and whenever you have 2 units that are adjacent to each other, the active player can spend an action point in order to attack the adjacent unit. The Mechanorc has a base strength of 2, while the Wall Walker only has a base strength of 1, but the Wall Walker does have a sword attached to them, which does give them an extra point of strength, but unfortunately for them, this is only when they are initiating the attack, and in this example, I'm going to have the blue character initiate the attack. Each player has the same selection of combat cards at the start of the game, and then you're going to be simultaneously choosing one and then revealing it to add to your unit's strength. I'm just going to randomly draw one from each, and we'll see how it plays out. So the blue player played a +3, and then the red player played a +2. Since this one already had a strength of 2 and this one had a strength of 1, the blue player would win and would be able to take this unit as a victory point. If the game continued and this Mechanorc was able to make it all the way to the red unit starting position, that would also be another way to gain a victory point. But the game just continues like this until one of the teams is able to amass 5 victory points, and then that team is the winner. Of course, there's going to be a bunch of new surprises with the campaign as well, including a brand new expansion, so if you are interested in this one, if it looks like fun to you, definitely check it out, and I'll have it linked in the description down below. And also launching on August 6th, we have the Cats of Mont St. Michael, and this one is a miniature solo cooperative campaign game that's set in the historical monastery of St. Michael, just before the French Revolution. And the way that this game works is that players are going to be playing as various cats, trying to rid the area of the villainous rats. Campaigns can be played over a series of scenarios where the successes and failures and decisions of the players are going to be dictating what happens further down in the scenario. But all of this is going to be played directly in the scenario booklet, which is going to make setting up the game really, really quick. And it'll also outline any goals or any specific rules for that given scenario. The way the game actually plays is through a series of rounds where the players are going to have an activation phase and then the enemy rats are going to have an activation phase. But which of those phases actually comes first can vary from round to round. Each player is going to have a set amount of action points that they'll be able to spend on their turn, and you're going to be using those to explore the different locations out on the board, investigate different points of interest, and even attack enemies and complete various skill checks. What's neat about this game is the way that the movement works, because you actually have 3 different ways that you can move. This is all based on the grid of spaces on the map, which is actually broken into a bunch of bigger areas, each made up of smaller spaces that players will be able to move through. You can either use a movement point to move into an adjacent small space, or you can use one of your more powerful movements in order to move to any small space within the area that you're currently in. Or if you're on the edge of that bigger area, you can do the same movement to move into any small space in the larger area adjacent to you. Alternatively, you can actually spend 2 action points to perform your pounce, which actually allows you to move 2 big areas away and then also issue an attack if you end your movement adjacent to an enemy. When you do attack, you're going to be taking your character's gear and stats and adding that together, and then also rolling a d12 and then comparing it against the enemy's stats. If you didn't roll exactly what you needed, there's also some special cases and items that you can use in order to re-roll your dice, and this same system applies to any skill checks that you'll be performing throughout the game as well. Each scenario is going to have a bunch of different objectives that it's going to have you trying to complete, and players are going to be using their different actions in order to try and meet those objectives. And between the scenarios, players have the opportunity to rest and also spend any resources or experience points that they've gained in order to upgrade their gear or upgrade their character. The game continues like this as players play through the overarching campaign, and if this one does sound interesting to you, you can find a link to it in the description below, and you might want to follow along to get a free coin added to your pledge. Also on the 6th, we have Chicago 68, and this one's a historical game where players are either playing as the establishment or the demonstrators during the Democratic National Convention riots of 1968. This is an asymmetrical game of street battles and political maneuvers, either playing as Chicago's corrupt and powerful mayor and the Chicago Police Department, or the other side depicted by various social movements. The game plays for 5 rounds over 3 different days, where the establishment are going to be using politics, backdoor deals, and brute force in order to control riots and manipulate the masses through a scripted media narrative. This is done through multi-use cards that will grant you an action for using that card, or instead you could discard it for a different action, with each of those decisions potentially modifying what the public thinks of you. The demonstrators are going to have a little bit more flexibility, quickly changing between clashes with police to nonviolent protests, and players are going to be using cards to engage in all sorts of street theater, and even try to lead the police around in circles in a game of cat and mouse. The establishment wins the game if they're able to get their candidate elected as a presidential nominee while maintaining a liked and positive image with the masses, but the demonstrators win by preventing either of those from actually happening. If you're interested to learn more details on how this one plays, you can go ahead and check out the campaign, and I will have that linked down below. Also on the 6th, we have Paw War, and this one is a head-to-head card battler where each player is going to be building up their team from a selection of cards, and they're going to be purchasing different action cards and gear in order to augment that team. What's interesting about this game is that you will be using dice rolling in order to issue your attacks, so depending on the card that you're activating, you're going to be rolling the associated die and then trying to roll a value higher than your opponent's health. Of course, your different gear and actions can help you augment those rolls and give you a little bit more flexibility and potentially some re-rolls. But the first player to destroy all their enemy heroes wins the game. I can really find much more outside of this campaign page itself, but if it does sound interesting to you, I will have a link down below, and I'm sure they'll have a lot more details once this one launches. And that's everything I got for you this week, but don't leave yet because we still got an awesome giveaway to announce. This one's going to be a pledge for Dead Reckoning, which is a game that you can only get on crowdfunding, so this is a great opportunity to try and get your hands on it. And this is a game that incorporates deck building and card crafting, as players are going to be building up both their crew through a deck of cards, but then each player will also be able to build up their ship by augmenting it with different types of upgrades. This is a game that offers a whole variety of different ways to score victory points, and players can try to complete all sorts of different objectives, controlling different islands, and of course defeating your opponents. The game offers a really fun mechanism for battles where players are going to be dropping cubes into a cube tower, and then wherever those cubes roll out onto the base of that tower, that's going to be determining the outcome of your attack. Of course, the different cubes can give you some different advantages, and this new expansion is actually going to be adding a new type of cube that has an icon on one of its sides, and if that cube happens to roll that icon, then it will also count as an additional cannon. There's a lot of content for this game at this point, so it's really nice that they added a storage solution that's going to house everything that they've offered in this game so far, and it does also fit in a calyx and has doors that will open up so that you don't even have to take it out of your calyx in order to get to all the different bits. This giveaway is going to be for the Deckhand Pledge as well as the brand new expansion. So if you are interested in this one, this is definitely a giveaway that you'll want to enter. And I do have a bit of a track record of running the bigger giveaways in the comments section and then the smaller giveaways over on the Discord. And I would consider this one a large giveaway, but just to mix it up, I'm going to run this one over on the Discord. So this is a really great opportunity to try and get this one because the odds on the Discord are really, really good. We usually get somewhere between 200 and 300 entries in the Discord giveaways. I have a feeling that might change with this giveaway. And to enter this giveaway, all you got to do is head over to the Discord in the description below, head over to the giveaways channel, and then click the emoji underneath that giveaway, and that'll get you automatically entered. If you're worried about getting spammed with a bunch of notifications from joining our Discord, I just want to let you know that I have everything turned off by default. But if you are interested in getting notified anytime a new game gets added, or anytime that I do run one of these giveaways, you can head over to the rules channel, and there's a bunch of different types of notifications that you can opt into. But I want this to be a nice place to be. I don't like spamming everyone with different notifications. So good luck in the giveaway, and if you haven't been on the Discord before, I hope you enjoy it. There's a whole bunch of different sections where I keep track of all the upcoming games, and I do go further into the future than what I share on these videos. So if you do want to get a bit of a sneak peek, you can go ahead and see those even before I make these videos. Good luck in the giveaway, but now let's go ahead and draw the winners from last week's giveaway. And we had a pledge for Jurassic Feud, Legacy at Sea, as well as Verdun. And to draw a winner, I'm going to be using this application here. All these extra names down here are bonus entries for my subscribers over on Ko-fi. But the first giveaway we're going to draw for is the pledge for Jurassic Feud. And I actually did ask to leave the hashtag feud in this one, so let's go ahead and do that. Cool. And the winner of Jurassic Feud is Mepper from the YouTube comments, and they say dinosaurs and pirates are both classic. How about a game where the dinos and pirates are competing? I'm pretty sure that's got to be an option in Unmatched. I know that they have dinosaurs, and I'd be surprised if they don't have pirates. They do have Sinbad, and I think that does qualify. I don't know if there's more here, but you're halfway there already by winning Jurassic Feud. All you need is the pirates. Congratulations on the win. Thanks so much for tuning into the channel and joining in on the fun. Just email me at adam@shelfclutter.com and we'll get the pledge sorted out. But now let's go ahead and draw for Legacy at Sea, and we're going to do the exact same thing here, except change this to Legacy. And draw a winner. And the winner is... Okay, I'm not sure if there's actually a member on Ko-fi called Ko-fi Supporter, but I'm going to take a look. I'll be right back. I just checked and there's not, so let's go ahead and draw that one again. And the winner for reals this time is Billy Indiana. Congratulations on the win. I'll reach out to you and let you know that you want a pledge for Legacy at Sea. And the last giveaway we have is for a pledge for Verdun, so let's do the exact same thing here. I think we just did Verdun as the comment. Let's draw the winner. And the winner is Kayutu, which is one of our Ko-fi subscribers, so thanks so much for the support. I'll reach out to you and let you know that you won yourself a pledge for Verdun. And that's it for this week. Like I said, I will be heading to GenCon very, very soon here. But it's getting late and I still want to film one more video before I leave, so I better wrap this up. Thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, keep that shelf cluttered and the table full. What?